Welcome back to Zarinah Cooks with Love. I am Zarinah Cooks, and today I am preparing for you seafood stuffed shells. If you're interested in learning how to prepare this recipe, stay tuned. Alright, so for our ingredients, we are going to need a shallot, some celery. We are going to need paprika, that is a little bit of red crushed peppers. We have garlic powder, that is seafood seasoning, and we have a little bit of Cajun seasoning as well. We are also going to be using, that is herbs de Provence, or you can change that out for Italian seasoning, whichever fits. We also have some red and yellow bell pepper over there as well. We'll also be using some shrimp that is freshly cleaned, shelled, and deveined. We are also going to be using some imitation crab meat as well as some actual crab meat. That is lump. You do not have to use lump. If you have claw, that will work. That's just what I already had. Also have some mozzarella, some Parmesan, some ricotta, and lemon. Now, I am kind of like putting it together as I go, so there are going to be some of the ingredients listed that you may not see me use. So I'm going to start with my seasonings, and we want to just clean them, and then I'm just going to dice them up and set them aside. Alright, so there are my chopped shallots, my chopped onions, my chopped celery and peppers, and my peeled shrimp. Alright, so now that we've gotten all of that together, we're just going to start to season. And I am going to take a little bit of my Cajun seasoning, and I'm going to go in with the seafood seasoning and garlic. I would say in regards to measurements, it's probably about a teaspoon of each. Making sure that I am seasoning well and mixing well to make sure all of the shrimp is nicely coated in the seasoning. Decided to add a little bit of the crushed red pepper to the shrimp as well, so just a little bit. Give that a good mix. And set that aside. Now we want to start working on our filling for our shells. So we are going to be using ricotta cheese. And I'm going to use just about half of that container. I believe that was like a 32 ounce. And you want to try and scale it up or down depending on how much you're making. I actually probably could have used a little less, because the amount of shells that I was able to fill exceeded the baking dish that I was using. And so I put some in my cast iron skillet too. Just gauge it based on how many you are preparing. Okay, and so we want to season everything that we're using because we're eating all of that. So I want to season my ricotta with some kosher salt and some ground black pepper. I am also going to be using some dried parsley. Anywhere where you can add in a little color and a little flavor, feel free to do so. So the parsley is going to give it a little earthy undertone, but it's also, what I really am using it for is to give it color. Makes it look pretty. So I'm going in there with some dry parsley flakes. And to our mixture, we are gonna go right in with the lump crab meat. I was trying to decide, like, do I want to use all of the crab meat or nah? Then I said, yeah, let's go on in. I am also going to be adding the imitation crab meat. And that wasn't a full bag. I know I showed you in the beginning a full bag, but I actually had like a half a bag in the refrigerator already, so I just used that. And then I'm going in with some Parmesan cheese, and I am also going to be putting in some mozzarella as well. We are also going to be adding in our seasoning to this mix as well. So included in this mixture of ricotta, Parmesan, mozzarella, crab meat, and imitation crab meat, I went ahead and threw in my celery and bell pepper. Okay, and we're just gonna mix this all in together. I'm not worried about keeping the crab meat intact or anything like that. Like I said, you can use any kind of crab meat. You can use any kind of seafood that you have on hand, actually. Whatever you want to mix. It's like, you know, it's your world when it comes to cooking. Whatever you like. If you don't like crab meat, don't use crab meat. Okay, but I want to give this a good mix. And this mixture you can taste. There's no egg or anything like that in this mixture. So you can definitely taste it. Make sure it's seasoned good enough for you. And as you can see, I lightly seasoned it with salt, pepper, and parsley. That's all it really needs, because we are going to be making an incredible sauce that is going to be covering these shells. That's going to give it every ounce of oomph that you need. And now we want to go ahead and heat up our pan with a little bit of olive oil so we can take care of our shrimp. We are going to part cook them, so we're going to cook them for maybe about a minute or less on each side, and they are going to finish in the oven. And in regards to the amount of shrimp that I prepared, I would say it's probably about a pound or so. But this was frozen shrimp, and I basically thawed it out. It was already defanged, so I just had to take the shell off. I decided to keep the tail on. So the tail is on, but the rest of the shell is off. And as you can see, I am very lightly cooking this. Like I said, roughly a minute or less on each side. As long as it took me to put them in, then I just immediately flipped them over and took them off. I just took the shrimp off and put them back in the very same bowl that I had them in. Really what I wanted to do is get some of that flavor from that shrimp in my pan and use that as a base for my sauce. So that was really the only reason why I even cooked the shrimp, because the shrimp will cook in the oven for the amount of time. So now what I want to do is deglaze my pan, and I am doing that with a little bit of white wine, and then you want to let it reduce about halfway, and then we're going to go in with the rest of our ingredients to make our delicious sauce. Now that the wine has reduced, we're going to go in with our chopped shallot that we chopped earlier, and we want to let them caramelize and kind of cook until they become caramelized and translucent, and then we can add in more ingredients. Let them soak up that wine, get that flavor, get it all melded in together, and it really, really is a good basis for a good sauce. Okay, and so you can see the shallots literally soaked up that wine. And so now I went in with about 2 to 3 tablespoons of butter, and we want to let that also cook down. And then we'll be going in with our heavy whipping cream. I would say about 3 to 4 cups. Cooking with heavy whipping cream, you want to stir occasionally, because you don't want it to start to get too thick, and you want to test it and see how thick it is, and then as it cooks, we want to go in with a little bit of our seasoning. So that was kosher salt, black pepper, garlic powder, a little bit of Cajun seasoning, herbs de Provence, and I am giving it a good mix. And of course, to our sauce, we need to add some cheese. So I'm going in with some Parmesan. And if you're cooking with love and you're cooking with your heart, you're going to let that guide you as far as how much or how little you're going to want to use. In regards to the seasonings, again, I would say it was about a teaspoon for each part. So like you saw me add garlic powder to both the shrimp as well as to my sauce. So it would be about a teaspoon for the shrimp and then a teaspoon for the sauce. For the Cajun seasoning, I added it to both, so it was about 2 teaspoons in the bowl, but about a teaspoon for each, the sauce and for the shrimp. All right, and then as far as the Parmesan, I would say about a half a cup or so, or a little bit more or a little bit less, give or take. You are going to allow for your ancestors to guide you. You are going to call on them and ask them to guide you with how much seasoning you should use. But my rule of thumb is always to go in with less, because you can add more as you go. If from the rip you are going crazy with the seasoning, you can overly season, overly salt, and ruin your whole dish. All right, so to that sauce, I am also adding in some crushed red pepper flakes for a little bit of heat. And then you do want to taste. As you can see, I tasted that, see if there was anything that was missing, anything that I wanted to add. And so those red crushed pepper flakes was all that I was needing. You want to let that go for another minute or two, and then you want to take it off the heat. You just want to let it go as long as it takes to thicken up a bit and coat your spoon. Once it gets to that point, it is done. Give it a final taste. Make sure that you don't need anything else, and then turn the heat off. Okay, and so while everything else was going, I had prepared my pot with water that was boiling, and then I had put in my noodles. You always want to cook your noodles to al dente, so I let them cook for maybe about 8 to 9 minutes, and then I took them off, and I am rinsing them off with cold water because I want to bring the temperature down. I want to stop the cooking process here so that I can stuff my shells, and then I will put them in the oven for them to cook further. So now what I am just doing is coating the bottom of my baking dish with some of that delicious sauce that we made, and then we are going to begin to stuff our shells. This part of it is super simple. Now that you've rinsed your noodles off with cold water, they should be at a temperature where you can handle them. And basically, we're just going to open up those shells and we are going to stuff them with our stuffing to your heart's content. You can put as much or as little into these shells as you desire. Just make sure that you space it out so that you have enough to fill your baking dish. But again, you can put in as much or as little. I kind of like to overstuff them because what's the point of cooking for yourself and cooking at home if you're going to give yourself little restaurant portions? So let's do the damn thing and stuff those shells. Alright, so now that we have finished stuffing all of our shells, we are going to go in with our sauce to cover them, and we are going to cover the dish and put it in the oven on 350, and we are going to let that go for about 20 minutes or so. And of course, before putting it in the oven, we definitely want to top that with some of our mozzarella cheese, and then we're gonna again cover it with foil and put it in the oven for 350 for about 20 minutes. So after 20 minutes, we want to take it out of the oven, take the foil off, and then we are going to go in with our shrimp, and we're going to do our last little bit of seasoning, and we're going to finish this off in the oven. You can place your shrimp however you want. Be creative. You can just lay them on top. You can kind of stick them in how I'm sticking them in. Whatever floats your boat. This is where you can be creative and do whatever it is that you want to do. Alright, so as we finish off this dish, we are going to sprinkle some more Parmesan on top. We are also going to be going in with our paprika for a little bit of color. We will also hit it with a little bit more of that Cajun seasoning. Parsley, fresh or dried, will work here. And some mozzarella cheese. We don't want to go too crazy with the cheese at this point because we already put some on there, and you don't want to cover up all that beautiful color that you just did with the paprika and the parsley. So once you do that, you're going to put it back in the oven, uncover it, and we're going to let that go for about 10 minutes. Ta-da! Here they are 10 minutes later. That is our beautiful seafood stuffed shells. As I told you, I actually made some in my cast iron as well because I just had more filling left, and I didn't want that to go to waste. So I made more shells, and that is that second pan. Alright, so look at this creamy stuffed shells, or seafood stuffed shells, should I say. This was so delicious. The flavor was like out of sight, and I haven't had stuffed shells in a long time, so this was really good. My dad would make them when we were growing up, but here is my take on a family meal. Tell me if you like this recipe, if you are going to try this recipe out at home. Thank you so much. Please make sure you give the video a thumbs up. Make sure you hit the notification bell so that you can be in the know for when I drop a new video, which I do every week, Sunday morning at 9. That schedule may change. So again, make sure you have that notification button smashed so that you can be always kept in the loop. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for following me. Make sure you're following me on TikTok, Instagram at Zarinah Cooks, and I love you for watching.